Joining me now, four-star retired General David Petraeus, a former commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan and the former director of the CIA, now chairman of the KKR Global Institute. General, very good to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. I want to get your thoughts on this potential Ukrainian hit inside of Russia on that oil depot. And you heard Jennifer's reporting on what the Pentagon thinks as they look at this, although we don't have confirmation yet. General Petraeus, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and I thought you were going to say that you wanted to hear one more report. But no, look, how can Russia be outraged if there's an attack just inside its territory on a fuel depot when Russia has been actively attacking fuel depots throughout Ukraine since the very beginning of the invasion? They have destroyed civil and military infrastructure without any distinction, just as they have struck military facilities and civilian facilities throughout the country. So the idea that there should be outrage if indeed these two Mi-24 attack helicopters turn out to be Ukrainian is just ludicrous. It's nonsensical. And it is a continuation of course, the kind of disinformation that Russia has sought to sow ever since the beginning of the invasion. But, you know, Martha, this is a really eventful week. This is the week that saw Ukraine win the Battle of Kyiv. This is the week that saw the Russians withdraw about 20% of the forces that were attacking Kyiv because they've been rendered combat ineffective. In other words, they can no longer accomplish their mission without reconstitution, without being filled back up with people and weapon systems. And so they're pulling those out. We believe that they're going to push those over and come into Ukraine from the east. And this is why I mentioned that this is a perilous moment as well as really a very positive moment. Again, no question that the Russians will ever take Kyiv now, and they've even pushed the artillery out of range of the downtown area. And they're doing that to the east side of Kyiv as well, making progress outside Kharkiv, other cities, never going to let the Russians get to Odessa in the southwest. But yes, there's the concern about the southeast, the Russians helping the separatists push out from the so-called Donbass, the areas that the Russian separatists controlled within Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, and then also ultimately, eventually going to take Mariupol, the embattled coast city in the southeast that is very important as well, which has become the Ukrainian Alamo, fighting to the last defender, occupying lots of Russian battalions. But when that does eventually fall, those battalions will be freed up. They can turn to the northeast. These new forces that are augmenting are going to come in from the east. And this is why there's this urgency in President Zelensky and his government to get all that they can possibly get. Now, look, the U.S. has provided extraordinary amounts of weapon systems and supplies. So has a number of other NATO countries. The problem at this point in time is that a lot of what they really want, we don't have. We don't have the Russian caliber or the Eastern Bloc heavy artillery pieces or the rounds for it or the multiple launch rocket systems or some of the other Eastern Bloc systems that they need, the S-300 air defense system, which I believe our Patriot was put into Slovakia to free that up. So, again, I think that there's been a very extraordinary job done, terrific bipartisan support by Congress to get everything in there. And, you know, just the sheer numbers in the first week alone. Remember, it was 17,000 man-portable anti-tank guided missiles and 3,000 man-portable air defense systems, the Stinger, in that 1 week, and they've continued to flow. Now, the one that we should be pressing for is the Switchblade drone. Soldier pops it up out of a tube. It loiters. It's essentially a loitering munition, 15 or 30 minutes, depending on the size of it. The operator picks a target, it dives and blows itself up on that target. We ought to be getting thousands of those to Ukraine, not the 100 in the initial batch. Those could be game changers, and those could really augment these counterattacks by the Ukrainian forces as they push further out of Kyiv, as they push further out of Kharkiv, as they oppose the Russian forces that are trying to push out of the southeast and also trying to entrap some of the Ukrainian forces that are defending against that push out of the southeast. So I think that's, again, the sense, the origin, the catalyst for this urgency. I agree with it. I've been a commander. You never have enough, and you're always asking for more. And I think everyone is doing everything they can to provide that. And that includes our NATO allies. Germany on the cusp of providing an extraordinary amount of money and also of weapons and assistance.
Okay. Can we just quickly play this soundbite that we have of the interview with Zelensky? And then we're short on time, General, but I just want to get a super quick reaction out of this if I can. Let's play that.
Short of NATO, short of Article 5 protection, you're saying a group of nations provide security guarantees. Has President Biden offered the U.S. as one of those countries?
It's hard for us to talk about NATO because NATO doesn't want to admit us. I think it's a mistake because if we join NATO, we would make NATO much stronger. We are not a weak state. We are not proposing to make us stronger at the expense of NATO. We are not an addition. We are the locomotive.
General, your reaction to that?
Well, Martha, look, you have to have sympathy for that. You have to, feel again an enormous amount of empathy for the idea. The problem is that his negotiators themselves put forward on the negotiating table that Ukraine would be neutral. Now, it would have a security guarantee, but not as part of NATO. And that's a very significant distinction. That's what his negotiators put forward to Russia. I'd love to see us be one of the guarantors of that. I think it's a bit premature to talk about that just yet. The negotiators did say they want UN Security Council permanent members. That limits it pretty distinctly. You're now talking about on our side, the U.S., UK, France, because the other two, China and Russia, I presume, would not be the guarantors they're seeking. But I think, again, that construct, I think, makes sense. The idea of NATO membership, I think, is one that probably that ship has sailed.
Well, it sounds a little bit like what they were supposed to get with the Budapest Agreement, which pretty much fell apart in terms of protection of Ukraine ex-NATO.
And Russia was a guarantor.
Thank you, General. Great to have you here.
That was part of the problem.
Absolutely.
You bet, Martha.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, General. Good to see you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.